You are listening to the Coins, Currency, and American History podcast, presented by Littleton Coin Company.
Every great civilization leaves behind its ruins, its art, and its heroes. But the story of America can be told through something smaller, something we can hold in our hands. A coin. Coins are the fingerprints of a nation. This is the story of the United States of America. From colonies to social experiment to global economic leader.
Episode 27, The Roaring Twenties, Credit, Culture, and Consumerism. As World War I drew to a close, a new era emerged. Propelled forward into the 1920s, the United States sought to break free from pre-war life as it looked toward a future filled with endless possibilities. Known for its flappers, dance halls, and speakeasies, the Roaring Twenties became an age filled with wonder and whimsy. As the start of the decade glittered with shimmering societal norms, revolutions in personal finance, and rapid industrial growth, the nation soon found out that change was only the beginning. For decades, Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton had lobbied for women to have the right to vote, and while the early 1910s had seen progress being made with the formation of several groups supporting women's suffrage, World War I shifted the nation's focus. But America's women would not be deterred. Lucy Burns and Alice Paul, suffragists from New York, picked up the torches their predecessors had left. They reintroduced Stanton's women's suffrage amendment to Congress and waited with bated breath. Finally, in 1920, the 19th Amendment was passed. More than 130 years after the Constitution had been written, women in America were able to vote. The country was changing fast, and Americans looked eagerly to the years that lay ahead. Taking her place in the pockets of the nation's newest voters was a familiar face, Lady Liberty. During World War I, silver was an important resource and the global price of the element skyrocketed. Eager to help the Allied forces during the war to end all wars, the U.S. melted more than 270 million Morgan silver dollars. But there was a caveat, the Pittman Act of 1918. Congress allowed the nation's silver dollars to be melted with an understanding. After the war, the U.S. Mint would need to issue replacement dollars for each and every one that had been destroyed. After a 17-year hiatus, the Morgan dollar was restored in 1921, just in time to herald a new era of societal change. Although her reappearance was short-lived, the Morgan dollar did succeed in introducing a new generation to silver coinage. And as fall turned into winter that year, the silver dollar transitioned into something else entirely. Crowned with a tiara radiating sunshine, Lady Liberty's new visage brought with it a sense of peace, fitting for a nation looking forward to a bright future. Aptly named the Peace Dollar, it celebrated the end of World War I and a new age of prosperity. Droves of young men and women found themselves in the workforce, and by the beginning of 1922, these newly minted silver dollars were in their pockets, ready to be spent. Unlike their parents, America's newly employed lost generation had disposable income available. It had never been easier to spend with abandon. Innovation took hold as the nation buzzed with electric dreams made reality. Philo Farnsworth, Stephen Poplawski, Robert Goddard, from their minds and more came groundbreaking ideas. Ideas from sliced bread and blenders all the way to rocket engines. Inventions and innovations that changed the way the world worked. Of course, entertainment changed as well. Talkies revolutionized the motion picture industry. For decades, people had enjoyed silent movies, but now they could go to the theater and hear movies like The Jazz Singer. Everywhere Americans turned, something new or improved was waiting around the corner. But it would take more than a few Mercury dimes to experience these contraptions. America had been thrown headfirst into consumerism. Automobiles were still relatively new to the world, and a luxury not many could afford. Before the war, radios had been a novelty, rarely seen and owned by a select few. After, they became a staple in homes around the country. However, keeping up with the latest and greatest inventions took money, and lots of it. Before the Roaring Twenties, loans from the bank were limited to the wealthy. Often monetary help came in the form of asking family and friends for funds. But for those that weren't able to ask loved ones, they had to resort to borrowing from loan sharks. After the war, things changed, and companies found ways to get their products into consumers' hands faster. Buying things on credit wasn't new to the 1920s. In fact, the principle went back hundreds of years. But it was the first time that it became a truly popular spending method. By cutting out loan sharks and familial lending, companies were able to take control of the market. Consumers could now own the car or house of their dreams with a little help from the lender. The system typically worked in one of two ways. The first option was a weekly payment plan. Think of it as the precursor to layaway. The customer would make an initial down payment on the item. Then they'd make a payment to the company every week, usually in the form of $5 to $10. Once they had paid the full amount, they'd receive their product. The second and more popular option was installment credit. Like with the weekly plan, the customer would also make a down payment. However, instead of waiting to receive the product, they'd bring it home right away. Then the customer continued to make payments over several years until the loan was completed. Today, this is a practice most of us are familiar with, and it has a long history. The Singer Sewing Machine Company used it in the 1850s. In the 1920s, General Motors used it to sell cars. Other retailers soon followed, from department stores to makers of appliances and furniture. However, as buying on credit gained traction, the ground beneath the economy began to fracture. As the end of this shimmering decade neared, Americans saw nowhere else to go but up, and up, and up. It only made sense after the way things had gone for the past 9 years, but cracks had formed underneath the lifestyle so many had enjoyed. Consumerism had run rampant, and so had installment credit, personal loans, and stock values. People borrowed more and more, and not just for purchases. They also borrowed to buy stocks and other investments, the expectation being that they would pay their debts when they had their money back and then some. But that all changed just before the end of the decade. October 29, 1929, brought America's financial superiority to a screeching halt. Gold certificates no longer provided a buoy to those who had them. National banknotes struggled to be supported by the issuing bank. People once again began stockpiling coins. It hadn't taken long for the prosperity the nation enjoyed after World War I to turn the other direction. In the next episode of Coins, Currency, and American History, the stock market crash of 1929 changes everything. Citizens, investors, and government officials alike scrambled to make sense of the unfolding situation. The economic issues that had been lying just beneath the surface of the 1920s were about to make their presence known. Next time, the Great Depression, the New Deal, and managed capitalism. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Coins, Currency, and American History podcast presented by Littleton Coin Company. You can find out more about coins and currency in our free Learn Center at www.littletoncoin.com/learn. It's filled with fascinating facts about U.S. coins, world coins, ancient coins, paper money, and more, as well as helpful tips for collectors of all levels. You'll even find free collector guides, checklists, and virtual albums to help you get started and keep track of your growing collection. And while you're there, be sure to check out our online store. Visit www.littletoncoin.com today.